Chapter 10. A Long, Long Day. I watched in horror as a giant pink flying pig flew over our heads. "A sow!" I hollered as soon as I recognized it. "Take cover!" Everyone scattered in surprise as it swooped down again, narrowly missing my brother Malcolm. It stomped angrily, as if it were trying to destroy everything in its path, or destroy the earth beneath it. It then flapped its wings again, nearly knocking me over from the wind, even from my distance, and flew around in circles above our heads, waiting for the perfect chance to strike. "Don't tell me that thing is from Greek mythology," Percy complained beside me. Seriously, Seaweed Brain? What did he expect it to be from? Outer space? I let it go, considering the situation, and said, "Afraid so. The Klasmonian sow. It terrorized Greek towns back in the day." "Let me guess. Hercules beat it?" Percy said smartly. I sighed. "Nope. As far as I know, no hero has ever beaten it." "Perfect," Percy muttered, almost too quiet for me to hear. The Titan's army was realizing that the pig wasn't after them and started attacking us again, but still glancing nervously above them. This wasn't going to work. Percy, mirroring my thoughts in a different form, said, "The pig has to go. I'll take care of it," he said, as if a normal kid would say, "Fine, I'll do the dishes tonight. You guys hold the rest of the enemy. Push them back." "But Percy," Grover came in. Wait, where did he come from? "What if we can't?" I would have given him the glare if my arm wasn't poisoned. With it like this, I wasn't sure I could fight for much longer, though. Grover looked worn out and exhausted as well, probably from the magic on the Titan before. Percy, on the other hand, looked like he was on some crazy sugar rush and couldn't stop moving around. I guess I could blame ADHD for some part of that, though. Even if his clothing was torn and burnt and his shoes were close to shredding apart, he still managed to look well. And, well, cute. "Retreat if you need to," Percy interrupted my train of thought. "Just slow them down. I'll be back as soon as I can." I was about to convince him it probably wasn't the best idea, and we weren't that desperate yet, when he swung his hook like a lasso, and the hook wrapped around the base of the pig's wing, and I watched, horror going through my veins, as he swung into the sky, holding nothing but the rope. I could barely see him, but somehow, through that hundreds of miles an hour, soaring on a rope, probably many feet in the air, he managed to smile. Oh, Seaweed Brain, what could you possibly be thinking? The pig soared past the Plaza Hotel, and I was going to continue watching when Grover beside me shouted, "Annabeth!" I swung my dagger at just the right time, barely blocking Adracena's sword. I stroked again and managed to send her to Tartarus before another one came at me. I kept fighting, everything a blur, when I realized that the enemy was closing in on the Empire State Building, and we should probably move soon. "Clever Clan!" I yelled really loudly, which was a nickname that my cabin had made for us. Someone I didn't recognize from the Aphrodite cabin looked at me like I was crazy. Oh, right. I did recognize him. He was the one that had been in the room next to Percy, with the Care Bear underwear. I smirked back at him and hollered, "We need to retreat!" My cabin members glanced around nervously, and seeing the situation, followed my lead, clanging swords with monsters as we went along. We found ourselves, after a few minutes of battle on 33rd, at the Park Avenue Tunnel. I set up a huge owl banner quickly, silently hoping that, gods forbid, Percy survived, he would come here. I silently thanked the gods for the fact that nobody was in real deep danger. Of course, I had completely jinxed it. Suddenly, a Hyperborean giant, one of those blue guys with ice powers from the north, burst through the crowd of fighting. A small clearing was made around him, and he walked until he stopped, right in front of me. My arm was throbbing, and I hadn't even been sure I could take many smaller-sized monsters at this point. And of course, my luck had become drastically worse. One of my siblings, a 12-year-old named Sabrina, ran stupidly up to the giant. Kind of odd considering she was a child of Athena. My heart pounded. She was too young. We couldn't lose her. Sabrina, watch out! I yelled as loud as I possibly could, with the pain in my shoulder now feeling almost freshly cut open. To my horror, even when she leaped aside of the strike, the giant smacked her right in the ribs. I winced, and she flew and landed next to me. Thomas! I yelled at one of my siblings. Get her to somewhere safe! He nodded and dragged her off. Then the giant turned on me and raised his sword. I froze. Why couldn't I move? I just watched as the weapon came closer and closer in slow motion. I prayed to my mom. Suddenly, Percy fell out of the sky and slid down the front of the giant, bashing its nose with a clang that broke me out of my time spell. Roar! The monster growled, blue blood dripping grossly from its nostrils. Percy, God bless him, ran away across the pavement, for once not being a kelphead. Then it hit me. I'd be dead if Percy hadn't just saved me. Then I realized Percy had been fighting the pig. Was it possible? Could he beat a monster that even Hercules hadn't? I was starting to think of him as even higher than Hercules, surprisingly. At least, I would if he saved Olympus, something else Hercules hadn't done. A blast of fresh air from the giant snapped me back to reality, as it almost froze Percy, narrowly missing him. Hey! Ugly! I yelled at Percy. Just kidding, the giant. But I was facing Percy. Oh well, we'll just have to hope he didn't think I meant him, because he certainly was the opposite of that. The giant bellowed and turned towards me. It raised its weapon again, trying to finish what it had started, when Percy saved me again by stabbing the monster in the back of its legs. Whoa! The giant buckled, luckily. I watched, relieved as he turned to ice and crumpled until there was nothing left. Then I remembered the pig and Percy, but didn't forget to thank him. Thanks. The pig? Pork chops. I think he was funny, even when he didn't try to be. Good. I flexed my shoulder. It still was wailing in agony. I glanced at Percy, and just as I expected, his eyebrows were scrunched up, his mesmerizing green eyes fixed upon my arm. I rolled my eyes. I'm fine, Percy. Come on. We've got plenty of enemies left. He glanced around briefly. You're right. Let's go wherever the defenses need us the most. I nodded, and we set off. Everything was blurry, and I didn't know how long we ran around, fighting everything in our path, constantly, as my head spun around from my wound. I realized just how few of us there really were left, and it got worse as the night went on. Many friends were missing. Too many. I tried to distract myself by watching Percy fight. He still amazed me with that curse of his. He spun, taking at least 4 enemies at a time, destroying anything that got in his way. He gained that look he had a while ago, the protecting his friend's face, where you couldn't tell if he was the good guy or the bad guy. I scanned my surroundings and realized with a jolt that we were only a block away from the Empire State Building. This really wasn't going well. Understatement, I thought at myself. Why was I arguing with myself so much lately? Then I remembered my invisibility cap. I snatched it out of my pocket and slapped it on my head, surprising the giant in front of me. I stuck my blade in his stomach and watched proudly as he turned to ice. Invisibility made everything easier. I could fight when I wanted and took a few minor second breaks to give my arm a rest. I heard Katie yell, "Hold your lines!" But we were failing at that. We were too spread apart, even if Olympus was 20 feet behind me. I came up to Percy, and he sighed, getting tired clearly. If he was getting tired, that was bad news. He was doing most of the work, as much as I hated admitting it. I was about to say something to him when I realized I was invisible. I smirked a bit as I remembered the time I had spoken to him with my hat off while we were battling Medusa. Good old times. I pulled my cap off and yelled over the racket of clanging weapons and the occasional cry of pain. We have to fall back to the doorway! Hold it at all costs! Percy looked grim but nodded. Then, out of nowhere, a tune sounding suspiciously like an ice cream truck's music at my old school before I had run away bounced off the buildings, as loud as a concert could be. I looked at Percy and Thalia, who I noticed was near me, confused. Had it been them somehow? Not the hunters. We're all here, Thalia told us. Could this be another surprise from Kronos? Oh gods, Kronos was right over there. In a golden chariot, how could I not have noticed? But he looked as confused as us. Then who? Percy asked. The horns got noisier, and I resisted the urge to cover my ears. Then, like a miracle, Kronos' entire northern flank surged into the southern flank. Monster dust was flying everywhere. Yeah, baby! Party! Someone screamed, and I immediately knew who it was. Centaurs! I yelled delightedly, and let me tell you, it was not something I had ever done before. The party ponies had come to join us. Luckily, Chiron must have accomplished that. I grinned wearily. The monsters were all turning away from the Empire State Building, and Chiron yelled, "Percy! Sorry we're late!" "Dude!" one of the party ponies yelled, and I stifled a giggle. I had never heard Chiron called dude in my almost 10 years of knowing him. "Talk later! Waste monsters now!" He lifted a paintball gun, and surprisingly, it dissolved the monsters. The only side effect was the bright pink paint everywhere. The ponies continued to shout at each other, and before I knew it, the entire army, including Luke... Wait, Kronos? Why did I keep making that mistake? Ugh, Annabeth, stop talking to yourself. But you're doing it right now. My other side fought back. I shut myself up, and what I meant was that Kronos had disappeared as well. Well, at least underneath the Hyperborean's butt. I stifled a laugh. Chiron told us to hold, and we finally managed. Well, it looked like we were safe. For now.